Welcome to Making Grants Research Simple. My name is Becky Wiegand and I'm the Webinar Program Manager here at TechSoup Global, and I will be your host for today's event. Also joining us, we have Jeremy Smith, who has, after 10 years in radio and 6 years as an announcer at a local NPR station, he began bringing tech support to you and came into the world of GrantStation through that endeavor, joining their team in July of 2008. Since then, he's been working to connect nonprofits with funding, and it has become a point of enjoyment for him to update and create new features and looks for their website. So he's doing his work every day to try and make researching and finding grants the easiest process possible. So we'll hear from him in just a little bit. We'll also be joined by Sarah Kennedy, who's been with GrantStation since February of 2007. And she brings her experience having been the Executive Director for a local nonprofit. She worked with the Veterans Administration as a research assistant for over a decade, and she currently serves as GrantStation's Director of Online Education. So we'll be hearing from both of them today about how to make grants research a simpler process for you. And we'll also be doing that within the context of talking about GrantStation's tool. So they'll be showing some of these processes and strategies within the context of their tool, but know that the strategies wouldn't be different no matter what tool you're using. They want to really impart some knowledge to you on how to think about the grants process regardless of what tool you're using. You'll also see in the chat window Julie Navejas and Ali Bezdikian, who will be helping answer your questions throughout the webinar. A look at today's agenda. We'll be doing a quick introduction to TechSoup in case you're not familiar with us. We'll have a moment where you, our participants in today's webinar, can participate in a poll and tell us a little bit about your strategy. And then we'll talk about that grants research strategy and how to simplify it using tools like a project description worksheet, how and where to do research, and talking about how to create a decision matrix so you know which grants to go after and which ones are most strategic for your work. We'll also have a few minutes to talk about the special offer that GrantStation is making available coming up next week through TechSoup, and we'll have time for Q&A. So TechSoup is a 501c3 nonprofit, and we're working toward the day when every nonprofit and library on the planet has the knowledge and technology resources to operate at their full potential. We do that in a variety of ways, including webinars like this. And we've been doing that since 1987, serving more than 200,000 charitable organizations in more than 60 countries around the world. You can learn about what we do and things like our special offer next week on TechSoup.org. And just a quick mention for those of you who may not be able to stick around for the full event, next week's offer, which we'll go into in more detail, is next week, January 27th and 28th, where you can get a discounted 1-year membership for $99. And so feel free to visit our site to learn more about that during the event or after, and then later on we'll talk about it a bit more. Now diving into the topic at hand. Go ahead and check on your screen yes or no, or feel free to chat if you have something else to say in the comments. Let us know, do you have a grant strategy at your organization already? Do you have a calendar that you use? Do you have a plan? Some people are answering yes in the chat. And I realize not everyone can see the chat. The only folks who can are those of us who are presenters on today's webinar. So if you have interesting or useful comments to share that would be of value to the full audience, we'll try to chat those back out to you. We have just over 430 people on the line with us today, so I want to give a few more seconds for everyone to participate in the poll. We have a big crowd, and so we'll do our best to answer your questions, but with the size of today's crowd we may not get through all of them. But like I said, we'll do our best to point you to the best resources so you can continue to build on your strategy to make your grants research effective and simple. So looking at the results of this survey, 78% answered no, that they don't have an overall grant strategy. So today's webinar will hopefully be really valuable to those of you who are answering in the no category right now, because hopefully you'll walk away with some places to start on building that strategy and a way to make it a simple strategy that works for your organization. And for those of you who answered yes, 21%, 22% almost, hopefully you'll still get a lot out of this too, and maybe have some different perspectives of how to improve your strategy and build on it. So with that, I would love to go ahead and have our first presenter join us on the line, Jeremy Smith, to talk a little bit about how to get started. Where do people start with their grant strategy, and how do they do grants research in a way that's not overwhelming?
Well, that
Welcome
sounds
to the
great.
program, Jeremy.
Oh, thank you very much. So I think at this point I will take over your screen and show people what I have on mine. Is that okay if I do that?
Absolutely. Take it away.
Excellent. Okay. So it'll take just a couple moments and we'll go ahead and transfer this over. So I'll just need 1 second and we'll get this beginning. So again, thank you for joining us for this tour today. We'll be showing you all about GrantStation and also how to put together a grant-seeking strategy. And one of the great things that we'll be doing today, for me of course, is showing you how you can do it all through GrantStation for that purpose. Again, my name is Jeremy Smith, and I am the Communications and Technology Director here at GrantStation. And I really wanted to show you through GrantStation, and just in general, how you can do all of your research, all your grant-seeking research, from identifying the right funders to actually building a grant-seeking strategy that you and other members of your organization can use in the coming year. And just for people who are a little bit worried, it's not scary, it's just a process. So what we're hoping you'll walk away from this webinar today is with an idea of the process that goes into actually putting together a grant-seeking strategy. So before we get started in the actual search, let me tell you a little bit about GrantStation. What we are is a set of tools and resources that helps organizations identify and secure grant dollars. Now, GrantStation is a publishing company. Research and writing are our skill sets, and we pride ourselves on publishing current and forward-looking information about grant makers. Now, all the grant maker profiles on GrantStation, both government and private listings that we have, are, for lack of a better description, what we call in the game. Now, what that means is these are grant makers who are actively accepting requests or letters of inquiry from a variety of nonprofits. Now, you may have used some other services or even Google, where you do your research, you type in a search term, and you get hundreds or thousands of returns, leaving you with a really long list of potential funders to screen through without knowing how relevant they are to your specific needs. Our job at GrantStation is to pre-screen grant makers, so the time you spend researching generates a list of grant makers that may truly accept a request to fund your organization's program or project. Now, let's do a search that's going to take you through the entire research process. So I'm going to put together a made-up scenario here, and this is one that I talked with our CEO, Cynthia Adams, about. And let's say that I am trying to purchase land and build a new community health clinic in a small community under, say, $20,000 in rural Ohio. So the question is, how do you go about identifying the best grant makers to approach? The best way to begin when you're doing any kind of grants research or putting together a grant strategy specifically is to always start by organizing your thoughts. And the best way to do that we've found is with a sheet that we have that you're going to receive today. You can use it multiple times because you're participating in this webinar, but also available when you log into GrantStation. It's what we call the Project Description Worksheet, which I'll go ahead and switch to right now. Now, the Project Description Worksheet, which we have right here, this will really help you flesh out the budget, including adding brand names of equipment you'll specifically need to purchase, as well as really organizing those thoughts of what you're trying to get funding for. As part of the budget for our grant search, there will also be planning money needed for the design of the clinic, possibly for landscaping. This is just fleshing out our idea for our research. And then a play area for children, and of course parking and lighting. So these are all things we have to consider when we're putting together an actual grant strategy. It's important when you are an organization, I notice many of you are new organizations, if you are looking for grants and looking for funding for your organization, don't try to find money that fits you for only one purpose. You have to remember that you are a multifaceted organization. There's many things you're trying to do. You're trying to keep the lights on. You're trying to hire new people. You're trying to get new equipment. You're trying to put together outreach materials or trying to pay for training. Each of those is a separate type of search with a separate type of support that can come from a different grant maker. So the most important bit of knowledge I think I can impart to you today is to remember to have a large selection of grant makers offering you support. Because the last thing you want to do is have one grant maker giving you all your money and then they suddenly decide they're no longer going to support you, or they themselves go out of business, or something happens where you can no longer work with them. It's important to basically diversify your grants portfolio, and that's what we're going to try to show you how to do today as a part of your grant strategy and part of this process. When you use this worksheet, this project description worksheet as your guide, you're really going to first look for planning funds, and then you're going to look for land acquisition, and then for building funds. Now again, we recommend you start your searches by always looking for government funding, as this will allow you to find any large amounts of money to support your project. And I'm just going to scroll down here really quickly and show you that this is another little bit of breakdown, which also shows you how to go into the concept of using keywords and how we can ask ourselves what areas of interest are we covering for this specific project, and what type of support do we need for this project. Again, this worksheet shouldn't take you any more than 5 to 10 minutes to complete. You could sit down with your board members and do this, or simply your grant writer could go ahead and talk with you through this. Or if you are the grant writer, simply using this as a brainstorming sheet will really help you organize your thoughts and streamline your grant seeking. So one thing I want to go into, though, before we get into this specific search in federal funding monies, we really encourage people to familiarize themselves with our search terms. Now on our website, which we're on right now, hopefully you can see, we have 4 specific areas that you can go into. We have a search area. This is where you'll do all of your grants research. We have a write area. This is where we have articles that go in depth into actually writing grants and learning about grant applications, what a letter of inquiry is, basically walking you through the soup to nuts approach of learning about grant writing. And then we have our Learn section, where we have various interactive tools and various articles that will really be beneficial in the grant seeking process. And then down near the bottom here, we have our Read section. And this is where we have specific information about our newsletters that we are offering to members of GrantStation as well. But what I want to start with here, I'm going to scroll up here on the website now, is under our search terms area, or under our search area, we're going to take a look at our search terms. Now our search terms, in specifically this area right here, is the key terminology that's used on our website. And these key terms are used across the entire web with all nonprofit organizations and with all funding organizations. This really serves as a great guide when you're doing your keyword research, because it's a glossary that defines the terms that we use throughout our areas of interest in all of our grants research, and also the types of support categories that we have here in our databases. And also these keyword terms will allow you to take words that you may call something and match them to what the funder calls it. Many people have often done searches in our database and they're unable to find funding. And the reason why that happens is because they're looking for a certain keyword that doesn't necessarily match what the funder is looking for. I've had many people contact us saying, well, you have no funding available for horse therapy. Well, the reason why is that's available under equine therapy. So what you can do is if you type in this particular area by using your Control F or Command F key, it pops up a search box in your browser. And you can go ahead and do a search for horse therapy and realize it's located under the equine therapy category head. So you'll know when you're doing your research, you'll want to make sure you look in equine therapy if you're looking for funding for doing horse therapy. So there's just little nuances like that which can increase your search results no matter where you're doing your research at. Basically, if you know the right terms, you can find the right funding for your organization or for your specific need. So let's go ahead and begin our search by moving into our search databases. And as you can see right here under the search heading, which I just highlighted, we have U.S. grants, international grants, and Canadian grants. Now we have tours available that go in depth into all these different areas. But for the purposes of today's tour, we're just going to walk you through the entire process of finding funding for that specific organization that we came up with. And again, just to remind you, it's a community health clinic in a small community located in rural Ohio. So at this point, I'm going to go into our U.S. grants section. Now within our U.S. grants section, we have 3 specific databases that you can look through. The one on the top here is the U.S. Charitable Giving Database. The second one we have is our Federal Grants and Loans Database. And finally, we have our State Grants and Loans Database. Within each of these databases, you'll find a lot of different options and a lot of different results that will help you. But again, what we're going to focus on today is this process of how do you go from having no grants at all to having a grant strategy. So we're going to go ahead and begin our search within our State Grants and Loans section. So I'm going to go ahead and click on State Grants and Loans. So from the State Grants and Loans page, we're going to go ahead and click on our specific state, which in this case is Ohio. So here on our state page we have, again, let's keep in mind that with our scenario, we're located in a small community. And one thing that many people are aware of, especially in this situation, is you're probably already aware of some grant opportunities and organizations within your area. Because when you start a nonprofit or you're beginning your research, you're aware of some of the big people around, the people who are more likely to have money, who may even be in your backyard. And that's what the State Grants and Loans page is for, is it really helps you identify those people who are close to you. Because one thing that we found in our years of research here at GrantStation is that organizations, both state-based and also nationally based, tend to give where they live is sort of the little mantra there. So you often look for funding in your own backyard first, and then you can start branching out from there. So again, one thing that I'm going to assume that our sort of make-believe nonprofit in Ohio is they're already aware of the U.S. Department of Agriculture grants for community facilities. So if you're not actually searching at this point because you know this is a specific source, you can follow that link here from this particular web page. And this again is taking you directly to a state-based page where you can find funding broken down into 3 different categories. And that's funding that's provided by federal and state-funded agencies, funding provided by state-funded agencies, and funding available from state departments. One thing that we should start, however, here is let you know that you could, with GrantStation, you can find access to all these different types of sources from one location. And one of the big things we try to position ourselves here at GrantStation, which makes us different from other people, is that you can do all of your grants research under one roof. You don't have to jump into different databases. You don't have to go to different websites. You can do all of your grants research right here at GrantStation. And to show you that, we're going to go ahead and look under the Rural Development USDA grants, which you can find right here. So we're going to go ahead and click that link right now. Now from this particular page, once it loads up, looks like it's a little slow on their end right now, or at least the images aren't loading. Well, on this particular page, this is a federal program, but it's managed on a regional basis, and it shows up in this particular area of our website. And from here you can find links to various housing and also community programs are here, which will take you to a specific grant, which is, again, this is unfortunate that their page isn't loading because it was just working last night. I'll have to go ahead and contact them. But from here, there's actually a link that takes you to the Community Facilities Grants. And this particular grant supports both planning and construction and equipment loans. So if I go back to the page I was just on, I can find links to all the other different areas where there's other types of funding. And the trick at this point is to take a look at your organization and your specific needs and then find a matching organization on a state-based level. Now, you're not always guaranteed to find funding from a state-based organization or from a state-funded agency or a state department. But the trick is to do your due diligence when you're doing your research. More often than not, when you approach a large grant maker, they will already know if there's funding available on these different levels, within the state level or the federal level. And if you haven't done your research and you can't say specifically whether it's a good match for you or not, this may be a little red flag for the granting organization to think if this person is really interested in getting funding. So it's important to look in all the possible areas. And in our opinion, that's the state level, the federal level, and then within various charitable organizations. So I'm going to go ahead and back up now by clicking the State Grants and Loans link at the very top of the page. And that often will take you back to the previous page here at GrantStation. And again, we have one of these available for all 50 states and the District of Columbia. So no matter where you're located at in the U.S., you can find state-based grants and loans available for you or direct links to their sites from GrantStation. At this point, I'm going to go back into our U.S. grants page. And from here, we're going to take a look at our federal grants and loans database. Now within this database, this is something we recently revamped, and all the information that we have here comes to you from grants.gov, which is basically the de facto source of all federal-based grants and loans. What we've done, though, is made the interface incredibly simple and incredibly easy to use. At this point, I'll simply click on the Expand All button right here. And what you'll see is you can search through these using areas of interest, using agencies as your listing, or using eligibility as your basis, or combine various aspects of this. Now, all the databases that we have here at GrantStation are operated off an AND-based database. Now, what that means is you'll have to match search term A and search term B to get results, which will really narrow down everything so you'll get exactly the right results for your specific need for your specific organization. Now, in addition to these categories you can select, we also have keyword opportunities where you can enter in specific keywords. You can also enter in a funding opportunity number, or you can also enter in a direct CFDA number. And going down a little bit further just to show you how the results are presented, you'll get a brief linking of the opportunity number. You'll get the title of that specific opportunity, the agency who's offering it, and then you also have open and close dates as well for that specific opportunity. And you can sort them by simply clicking on the header. If you click it once, it will sort it alphabetically. If you click it again, it sorts in reverse alphabetical order. Also, when you want to look at the actual results, you'll simply click on the link right here, and it does a quick search, and then it will pop up all the pertinent information right here, which will include the title of the specific funding opportunity on the federal level, the opportunity number, the agency, some direct contact information, a brief description, the maximum award amount, the specific CFDA number, and then the specific deadline, and then a link for even more information directly from grants.gov. So if you click Return to Search Results, it takes you back to all of your search results. So it's pretty slick, and it's really fast, and it's a great way to do your federal research without getting lost within the grants.gov system. So again, going back to our specific needs, what we're going to do is enter in specific keywords that we did our research earlier through search terms. And I'm going to enter in, let's say, health clinic, and we'll just go with health clinic. And then I'm going to enter in another one you can separate using the comma. Let's enter in building and equipment. Oops. And I will spell it correctly. And then it simply does a search, and then it pulls up results. And as you can see right here, we found 194 matches using those specific keywords. And again, this is an AND-based keyword search, so it's going to pull up those specific results that we need. What we can do at this point is we can narrow this down. We can focus in by selecting a specific agency. So if we scroll back up, and under agency, let's go ahead and click on the Department of, Health and Human Services. And if we scroll back down, we can see our results have now dropped to 23 matches. This is very doable. We can go through these, a quick review, looking through them, seeing if any of them match our specific needs. And just looking through here, since we're not focusing on, for instance, innovative approaches to prevent teen pregnancy, which is something here, nor something dealing with Ebola healthcare, this isn't something that's going to quite appeal to us. So what we've just done in less than 5 minutes is we've done our federal research for our specific need. And we can easily do more research by adding in more specific keywords or choosing specific eligibility or looking in specific agencies as well. But this is a really easy to use area that makes your federal research incredibly fast. And this is just another part of that grants process, of that strategy of looking in these specific areas first to find funding, and then eventually finding a large group of funders that you can focus on for your specific need for your organization. I do encourage you to do additional searches in this area. For instance, you could choose the Institute of Health or even the Center for Disease Control as part of your agency search. Because one thing I'm sure you're aware of as your organization is either forming or as it's been established is what specific areas you found support from in the past or reasons that have inspired you. More often than not, there's a federal agency that focuses on just that. And doing a little bit of research, you can quickly find which agency is a good match or at least has a similar trajectory to your organization, and then use them as sort of a guiding light when you're doing your grants research on the federal level. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and scroll up again. And here under our search link right here, I'm going to click on U.S. Grants one more time. And now I'm going to go into one of my favorite areas of the website here at GrantStation.com, and that's our U.S. Charitable Giving Database. Many people will spend a lot of time in this area. This is one of my favorite areas. And this is something that's also very unique to GrantStation just because of how easy it makes doing your grant research on the U.S.-based level. Now this particular database, our U.S. Charitable Giving database, contains thousands of different grantmaker profiles. Now this includes independent, family, community, and corporate foundations, corporate giving programs, religious grant makers, and associations with grant-making programs. Now, I just want to make another quick note. We'll probably mention this one more time. Our database only includes grant makers that are accepting unsolicited requests in order to make your research more effective and efficient. And just a reminder, that means all these organizations that you find and everything that we're showing you listings of today in this tour, they will accept an unsolicited request or a letter of inquiry. Nothing is specifically available to only one specific organization. They may have specific qualifiers for it, but it doesn't mean that it's only open to one or two basic organizations. Everything you find, you can apply for money from, or support, or equipment based on what your need is. So here in our U.S. Charitable Giving area, we have 3 different ways you can search. You can search by funder name, you can use our advanced search, or you can search by keyword. And just to remind you, with GrantStation, we have tours available for all these areas that go really in depth into how to use them effectively and efficiently. But again, our focus today is that process. How do we find funding and make it simple and easy to do that? So at this point, we're going to go ahead and go into our advanced search. Now from our advanced search page, we're going to go ahead and start with the most obvious search. And again, just a quick aside, there's 3 steps to doing an advanced search, and I'm going to walk you through it, and it's incredibly simple. The first step is to select a geographic scope. This is choosing whether we're looking for national grant makers serving a specific state, or both. So at this point, again, just to see how big your world is or how many grants you can possibly qualify for, we always like to start by looking for funders with both a national and geographic focus. So you simply check this box, and then you go over to the drop-down menu over here where it says Geographic Focus, and then choose your specific state focus. And again, we're based in Ohio, so we're going to go ahead and click on Ohio at this point. So, and that's all we have to do in step 1. Step 2 is where we select a specific area of interest. Now we can include up to 3 specific areas of interest that best match the projects or program for which you're seeking funding. And these are also described in our search terms area that I mentioned earlier. But this is where you would find that box to check for equine therapy. This is where you would find that box to check if you're trying to find support for arts within education, or if you need to find funding for audience development within an arts, culture, and humanities sort of category. For our needs, though, I already know, having done my research, that I want to scroll all the way down to our health category right here. And within our health category, we have an area called hospitals and clinics, because remember, that's our whole focus. So we're going to go ahead and just check this box at this point. And then we're going to scroll all the way down to step 3. And again, you can choose up to 3 in step 2. But for now, again, we're going to see how big our world is. Because again, the more you add, the more focused your search becomes, since this is an and-based search. So option A and option B must both be present. So we want to see how big our universe is first before we narrow in just to Earth. So we scroll all the way down to step 3. This is where you can select a specific type of support. Now within this area, you can choose funding that's only going to be for fellowships, or just money for an individual project, or money for an endowment or equipment, or maybe you're looking for computer and software donations, perhaps awards or prizes, or residencies, or seed money. This is where you can really narrow in and get just a specific type of support. Now one thing I did want to mention in this area, and this is an often overlooked area in funding, is 3 specific search terms. And I was hoping Sarah could come on. I can introduce you to Sarah, Sarah Kennedy, who is our online education manager, to talk about these 3 specific types of support. And one is capacity building, the second is general support, and the third is your project and program-based support.
Thanks so much, Jeremy. Yes, I really want to point out that at times you might want to just not check the box at all, and you'll pull up every kind of support. But when you're looking for those specific funders, you can pull these up. And capacity building, Often nonprofits overlook this type of support. These are a specific type of funders. It takes a specific type of proposal. When you want to build out the infrastructure of your organization, these are the kind of funders you want to look for. For general support, as I'm sure most of you know, that includes your program and project support. It also would include, say, you just want to hire one staff person. You would look under general support. And then, of course, there's program and project support where all the money is going to go to that project. But, I see in from a lot of the people that are joining us, they're new nonprofits, and they don't have a track record. And, Jeremy, just go down and highlight that seed money. That is for brand new nonprofits, and there are funders who will help you out there. But you really want to take a look at this type of support because oftentimes people overlook this technical assistance with your website, product donation. It's just very rich. And so you really want to utilize this particular section.
And one other thing to quickly mention about this is I have seen the number of people logging in, and many of them are new. And a couple of them have mentioned they're looking for funds to finance and pay for a grant writer as well. Well, in our selected type of support, this is where you can find that type of money. Technical assistance is one option. There's often money available in some cases for funding a specific grant writer for your organization by doing a search for technical assistance money. Often it can also be found within general support as well. It really depends on the funding organization. But that's been a very, very popular search area here at GrantStation is people don't know a whole lot about grants, but they can do their grants research through this process, looking within the state level, looking within the federal level, and then looking at U.S. charitable organizations. Knowing there are options out there, then the hardest part is just finding someone to write that grant application or do it themselves. So at this point, for our specific search, I'm going to go ahead and click on the support type of project planning because, again, I don't have my community health building yet, but I want to have it. So at this point, when I'm ready to do my search, I simply click on the Find Funders button. Once that search goes through, I can see that I have 80 total records here that I could go through. As far as navigating goes, I can simply click forward or backward by clicking these arrows right here. And if I want to jump to a specific page of results, I can simply click these numbers and jump to them. This is quite a few records to go through to start with. Some people like having a lot of records, and that's an option you can do at GrantStation, but I really like narrowing things down. So I'm going to go ahead and go back and just narrow down a couple more things here. So if I go all the way back by clicking the back arrow, and then I am here in my support type, I'm going to go ahead and change it from where I was to land and property acquisition. And I'm going to go ahead and click this back to top arrow, which jumps me back to the top of the page. And I'm going to uncheck funders with both a national geographic focus, and I'm going to look on funders with a specific geographic focus of just Ohio. So at this point, I'll scroll back down again. And remember, under health, we still have hospitals and clinics selected as our checkbox. And this area is, again, one of my favorite areas because all you do is basically check on and off various boxes, and then you can get hundreds of results or tens of results or maybe even 5 results that are a perfect match for your organization without having to read through all the various listings. So we have land property acquisition selected here, and at this point I'll click on Find Funders. So now I've narrowed that down to 5 total records. Now that may not seem like a lot, but the great thing is these are 5 records that are giving exclusively within Ohio. Their area of interest is hospitals and clinics, and their support is specific to land and property acquisition. So I know without even reading them, these 5 options are probably a really good fit, or at least will give me some leads for finding funding for my specific purpose. So let's go ahead and follow this up with a couple more searches. So if I go back, clicking my back arrow, my browser, I'm going to go ahead and play with my type of support area. Again, I'm going to go ahead and leave it on Ohio, and I'm going to go ahead and click on building funds, because again, I'm going to build my whole, build everything from scratch. So I'm clicking on building funds here in step 3, and I'm going to click on Find Funders. So now I have found 24 records. Again, my scope is only within Ohio. The area of interest is hospitals and clinics. My support type is specific to just building funds. And let's go ahead and take a look at this top listing right here, the Barnes Group Foundation. So you can see what these sample records look like. They're written in a narrative format, so they're very easy to go through and you can scan them at a glance. You'll get contact information towards the top, as well as a primary contact name that you can contact directly, the geographic scope of their specific giving opportunity, and then a specific geographic focus for the organization, the type of organization they are, followed by the eligibility requirements and the total annual amount they give, any specific application deadlines they have, and then we break down their specific areas of interest. And as you can see, this goes in depth into education and specifically health and welfare. So we can know by looking through this that this would be a good fit for our specific need of building a community health center within a rural Ohio location. We also have a nice little area that breaks down the types of support included, or types of support that they tend to include, and then also the application procedures, what you're going to need to do to apply for that specific grant. And you also at the very bottom have a last updated date stamp. And this is really handy for letting you know when this record was last visited and last updated by the people here at GrantStation. So I'm going to scroll back up to the top here, and then I'm going to click on Back to Search Results, which will take me back to the results that I have found with this specific search. So let's do a couple more searches. I just want to show you how easy it is to do them. And again, as I mentioned earlier, you're going to want to narrow things a bit as you're doing your research. And I'm going to just click back one more time and get us back to this page. And to remove national or add national to your geographic search area. Adding national will add in national and Ohio-based funding opportunities. So that will give you more results. Just Ohio will limit your results. So you can take a large list and then narrow it down to your specific needs. So let's do another sort of obvious search. We're going to go back to the top here. And we're going to stick with just Ohio for funders with a specific geographic focus. And then we're going to go ahead and go down to search for support type. Under areas of interest, actually really quickly, we're going to leave that at hospitals and clinics because that's what we're trying to do. And scrolling down to the very bottom, we're going to change from building funds as our selected option to equipment purchases. So I'll simply click on the equipment box, and then we'll do another Find Funder search. So now we've found 26 records. Again, some of them are repeats from before because they tend to give to hospitals and clinics, such as the Barnes Group Foundation. That seems like a really good one for us to look closer at for our specific needs today. But one thing I want to do now is mix it up a little bit and start finding other sources of funding that we can weave into this overall grant strategy process. So let's see if we can find a funder specifically for the landscaping and the play area for children. So I'm going to go ahead and go back to my search page, which takes me back to the very top, and it erases all the checkboxes. So I can start again with a brand new fresh search. So under geographic scope, I'm going to check funders with both a national and geographic focus. And from my drop-down menu, I'm going to go ahead and select Ohio again, because again, that's my focus. And I'm going to scroll down this time to an area of interest being Parks and Recreation, just towards the bottom here. And then specifically, I'm going to have a targeted population here of children and youth. So if I move back up, and one of the things is there's 163 options here. So sometimes it can be a little overwhelming, but that's where the search feature comes in really handy. So knowing that Parks and Recreation is right here, and it's available under the Community and Economic Development heading. So I'm going to go ahead and check on Parks and Recreation now. So I'll scroll down to the bottom and do a search for funders. So that's 62 records. That's way too many. So let's go ahead and narrow that down again by dropping the national feature. So I'll click my back button. I'm going to jump back to the top of the website. And then I'm going to uncheck the third option, funders with both national and geographic focus, and choose funders with a specific geographic focus, and that's just in Ohio. I'll scroll back down to the bottom, and at this point, I'll go ahead and click on Find Funders. So now we've narrowed that down from the 62 to 46 records, and we can of course bring this lower and lower if we want to. So let's go ahead and go back out to our main search page here in the U.S. Grants area. And we're going to take a quick look in our U.S. Charitable Giving Databases before, and we're going to go ahead and click on a search by funder name. So looking at my hypothetical budget, my project description worksheet, I noted that there's playground equipment with a specific brand name, and it's made by Miracle. So I'm simply going to type in Miracle and click a search for funders. Well, at this point I found 3 total records, and looking, oh look at this, the Miracle Recreation Equipment Company, Playground Grants for America's Children. That sounds incredibly promising for my specific purposes here. So this is how you can use this particular database. The key to this area is that it will go ahead and look for and find the specific result just in the name of the organization. You could type in a specific name like sports or baseball or health or whatever your general keyword for your organization is, just to get a quick search that only searches by the name of the funding organization. So obviously, as I mentioned, you're going to be using your project description worksheet to guide you through this entire research process. You're going to be looking for planning funds, for land acquisition, for building funds. Then you're going to be again looking for specific equipment with specific brand names, etc. Because you're going to do a lot of research when you're doing this, and all of you know how much work it is to have a nonprofit organization and how much work it is applying for grants. As you do your research, you'll find when you have a strategy, everything will fall quickly and easily into place. And I'm going to quickly jump back to our project description worksheet. This is where you can put down that description, your specific need and any relationship to past projects, and a budget summary for large list items, what the geographic focus is, what areas of interest are, and what type of support we need. And these are the different areas you'll put down specific names of organizations that provide the things you need, such as the Miracle Playground equipment and whatnot. And one thing to also keep in mind is you might want to search for funders that might be a bit outside the box. For example, in Ohio, you might want to research some of the vendors with, such as whomever you bank with, or a local or regional utility company. Often they'll offer smaller grants that you could put towards a specific purpose or need. And you can all do that by simply typing in the funder name. So if you click back to search page, and you enter in the name of that specific organization, you can see if they have a funding profile here at GrantStation.com. So for example, let's say you know the name of a company is the Ohio Causality Fund. Well, you can simply type in the entire name, or you can type in just part of the name. And I'm going to go ahead and type this in now. And we can see that here's the Ohio Causality Fund right here. And then you can go in depth and look at this profile as well. Once you've done this primary research, though, you're going to have a fairly extensive list of potential funding sources. Now, this is where at GrantStation, if you go under our Learn area, and this is what Sarah's going to talk about now, we have a step-by-step process that we refer to, or you can refer to, as called a grant-seeking calendar, or creating a grant-seeking calendar. I'm going to go ahead and click on that right now.
It is, Jeremy, and we have to.
Yeah, this will really help you. Yeah,
it will. It will, and we're running a little short on time, so let's. I want to let people know in this section, you can. It'll teach you how to put together the whole entire decision matrix. But if you pull up part 2, Jeremy, developing a decision matrix. So I just want to let you know that the decision matrix, when you create this will help you establish an annual grant-seeking calendar that will keep your grant-seeking focused on those programs and projects that need funds. So for every project you're looking for money for, you've written out a project description worksheet. You've done all your research to find those funders who are currently requesting proposals or letters of inquiry. Now you can put together this decision matrix. It does not cost any money. It just takes time. And you can use any kind of spreadsheet. You can use Excel. You can use Smartsheet. The matrix is comprised of rows and columns and relies on simple addition and subtraction to reach a conclusion or a score. And so when you run your funders that you just went and found through this decision matrix, you're gonna have a great grant seeking calendar. You can share this with your staff, your board of directors. You can let people know, I've done my research. You've got it all laid out here. And we've run short on time for me to show you exactly how to do it, but luckily it's right here in this 5-part series. Our CEO Cynthia Adams will take you through it step by step. And then at the very final thing, when you're done with your research, Jeremy, show them where the Ask a Funder is.
It's under our Learn section.
Right.
And these are the questions that you would specifically ask.
Right. That is, if you need some help, some guidelines with what might be appropriate to ask a funder, start the conversation. We have some suggestions here, and you're on your way.
And with that, we'll go ahead and hand it back to Becky at TechSoup.
Thank you for that. That was a lot of information in a quick amount of time. So what I'm going to do is stop sharing the screen really quickly, and I'm going to bounce us back to just quickly talk a little bit about the promotion that's going on next week, and then we'll get to some of your questions, of which there are many. So next week here on TechSoup's website, TechSoup is a nonprofit as I mentioned earlier, and GrantStation is one of our partners. They are offering a discounted 1-year membership for $99, and that is starting next Tuesday and Wednesday, just for those 2 days. It's $600 less than retail. If you want to take their free tour, there's a link here where you can do that, and you'll get all of this later in the email that you'll get after the webinar. Eligible U.S. nonprofits, charities, and public libraries. If you're joining us from Canada, you can also participate in this, though you'd want to go through the TechSoup Canada website in order to access that discount. And so you can learn more about eligibility. If you're new to TechSoup and you haven't registered with us, it's free to register, and it gives you access to potentially lots and lots of donations of tech resources from partners like GrantStation to Microsoft to Symantec to everybody in between for hardware, software, and services. And so this is taking place from 8 a.m. Pacific Time, January 27th through January 28th, 5 p.m. And you want to wait until this time frame to put GrantStation into your TechSoup cart in order to make sure that that discount is applied. And if you're not currently registered, you have 9 days from the promo that's happening next week to access the discount to make sure that you're registered and qualified and that you've paid in that period, or else it's not available to you. So if you're not yet registered, I would get started on that today if you want to take advantage of that offer. So quickly I'm going to jump into questions. We have a lot, and there are quite a few that are on the same theme. So one that's come in from several people is, can you save the searches that you do so you can repeat those searches and not have to re-query every time? How does that work?
Well, one of the great things, this is Jeremy again, about GrantStation is how we put together our specific profiles. Our profiles are constantly changing and they're modifying. So the reason why that is because certain grant makers will no longer offer a specific type of funding opportunity. This changes month to month and often week to week. So what you can do in our U.S. grants section is you can actually save the criteria for your search. It's a simple little area at the very top. So saving the search criteria is the best way to have the most recent up-to-date results for your grant research. And once you have that criteria saved, you simply match the checked boxes. Once they're matched, you'll get all the results that matched your last search that was such a good fit for your specific need.
Great, thank you. We had a lot of people ask about the difference between GrantStation and other grants databases out there like Foundation Center. Some people have access to library databases that have grantors in them. What are the big things that set this database apart if people want to access this discount offer next week? What are the things that you find most attractive and that distinguishes you from the others?
Well, I work for GrantStation, so that's a big bonus for me, and I think that should be great for everyone. But one of the big things about GrantStation is we offer federal research. We also offer our custom U.S. tradable database. We also offer state-based research, and we also offer a number of various interactive tools. Now again, we couldn't get into half the things GrantStation offers simply because there's not enough time in the day. We do offer other tours you can take on demand, available from our website on our tour page that go in depth into everything GrantStation offers that makes us different. But the most important thing, again, is all the listings that we have at GrantStation are what we call grant makers who are in the game. They're actively accepting unsolicited requests, which is very important and very hard to find. So you're not going to write an application, contact the grant maker, and they say, oh, we're only giving to Joe who lives down the street, not to anyone else, and you shouldn't have contacted us. Everyone we have listed is open to accepting your application.
Terrific. So we had quite a few people who also asked about specific regions of the world. So we had probably 5 or 6 different people who asked, do you have funders listed in your international database for West Africa, South Africa, different places around the world? In particular, we got quite a few asking about projects in Africa. Some of the organizations are based in the U.S. but do work there. So can you tell us a little bit about how many, well in general, how many funders are in GrantStation's database overall, if you have a count of that, and how much can they expect to find if they're looking for a specific region of the world?
That's a huge question. I could probably spend a while on it.
No, I know, and it's one I'm sure that changes every day, no doubt.
And that's the big thing, the whole in the game thing that's been mentioned. Things change constantly, and we often go in and update them at the very least on a yearly basis, but often every 3 months we go in. And it comes down to our researchers and their backlog they have to go through. But looking at our international database, last time I checked with our lead international researcher, there were approximately 9,000 listings in there across the world. And everyone listed in there will also work often with a U.S.-based organization, or if they won't work with a U.S.-based organization, we have it mentioned in the results if they'll work in a partnership with a U.S.-based and another international-based organization. So say you're trying to set up bringing clean water to villages in anywhere in Africa. For instance, you may be able to work with a nonprofit based in that specific country, even if you are based in the U.S., and we have that mentioned in the specific notes when you go through our international database.
Great, thank you. I really appreciate the succinct answer to such a big question. Let's see what else. There's lots of questions in here. Just trying to pull out one that maybe more people have answered. So do you, you talked about seed funding a little bit and how to get that. What if you need funding just to help cover overhead costs or operating admin costs of your organization? What's the best way to go about that? There's not usually a category for operating expenses. How do you guys recommend that people search?
Sarah, do you want to handle that one?
Sure. That falls right under general support. So there is a box they can click for general support, and that will cover operating expenses plus anything else their organization is looking to fund. So the interesting thing about GrantStation is we have those records in a narrative form, and the biggest challenge any nonprofit has in finding funding is that they need to identify the best funder that shares the same mission they do. And so we will write that out. You will see what is the funder's mission, what do they want to support. If we know what they don't want to support, that's your biggest challenge, and we're giving you that information if they will support operating funds, for instance.
That's terrific. And I've also heard people who are really expert at writing grant proposals and that win a lot of grants talk about how they really build out a lot of their operating expenses into their program expenses, that the computers that you might need replaced really should be part of your program expenses to help. You need that infrastructure there in order to support the completion of the program. And so I think keeping that in mind when you're writing grant proposals, that your general operating expenses may fall into a bucket on your budget, but they may actually be able to be pulled into your program expenses because they support your programs, right?
Correct. Next time, Becky, you're going to be giving the tour. So you got it, Becky.
I wouldn't give a tour on GrantStation, but I've heard people say that, and I think it's great advice, having written a lot of grant proposals in my prior life working at a bunch of small nonprofits. That was one of our struggles always as well. Let's see. So how do funders get into your database? Where do you guys find all of these funders? And from state and local, and somebody asked about small and rural communities. How do you know what's in there? Is there a way to get an idea of where those come from?
Oh, they come from all over. Again, this is why we have about a team of 7 different researchers located all across the U.S. We have them in the Midwest. We have them in California. We have them up in Oregon. We have 2 in Spain. We have another in Mexico. They're constantly looking and researching. I mean, there are jobs out there for people who are wondering about this where you just do Internet research. And one of the companies that hires them to do that is GrantStation. So people are constantly looking and searching and finding information. And GrantStation has been around since, Sarah, forever? Is that the answer? I'm not sure exactly.
1999.
99. It feels like forever. So in that time, we have made so many different relationships with so many different grant makers. Many of them contact us directly and say, hey, we have a new grant. Will you add it to the database? And we immediately add it. And we set up a relationship with that grant maker and add them to the database. There's no charge to be included in the database. We don't feature any specific grant maker over another one. We add them to the database. The only requirement is that they're actively accepting unsolicited requests or letters of inquiry.
That's really helpful. And we are just about at time, so I need to move us forward even though I know there are a lot of questions not answered. I'll look through the questions after and see if there are some categories of questions we can try and answer and get some answers back out to you by email in the next few days. So thank you all for asking such really terrific questions. I'd like to invite you to join us at upcoming events. We have some coming up in the next couple of weeks. New Year, New Tech Plan, how to work on your mission-driven technology plan and get one if you don't have one. Then we'll be talking about telecommuting and people who work remotely, whether that means you live far from your head office or whether that means you just work from home a day a week. We'll talk about tactics, tips, and tools for working and managing staff remotely. Then we'll have a webinar on the 18th of February around assistive technology, and in particular in public libraries and public access computing centers. And then we'll talk about tech donations specifically for faith-based and religious organizations. You'll get links to all of these in the follow-up email you'll receive later today. That email will also include a link to today's recording, the project description worksheet that Jeremy mentioned that is exclusively available to those of you who joined us today, and you'll get any of the links that we've discussed. Thank you so much, Jeremy. Thank you so much, Sarah. Really appreciate you taking the time to show us around GrantStation and to share with us some of the strategies for grant research that can apply no matter what tool you use.
So thanks.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. We really were glad to have you. Lastly, I'd like to thank Julie and Allie for helping answer questions on the back end. And lastly, I'd like to thank ReadyTalk, who is sponsoring today's webinar by providing the use of their ReadyTalk 500 platform for our ability to do this webinar. They give it to us to use during our weekly webinars that we hope you'll join us for. And they are also part of TechSoup's donation program, so you can learn more about getting this tool yourself at TechSoup.org/ReadyTalk. Please take a moment when the window closes to complete the post-event survey to help us to continue to improve our webinar programming. Thank you so much, everyone, and have a terrific day. Bye-bye.